Morning, GMT. How are things?
Hey, Dan. They're going.
Tim, Nick, sounds great.
Yeah.
What could go wrong?
Exactly. Well, it actually does look like the numbers are going to end the year a little better or better than we expected. So which will help us in, 26 will be fine, obviously, but 27 is the big year where there's the, major problem. So I think we could see
You and
the
us both.
deficit come down for sure.
Yeah, that sounds great, Nick. Yeah, I look forward to the update, and that's good to
Yeah.
hear. So, yeah. Hey, Paul.
Good morning, good morning. We had enough rain to settle the dust anyway.
That was about it.
That's about it.
It is so muggy in here, it's like unbelievable. I'll tell you.
Montpelier got like 3 rainstorms, and the first one, torrential downpour, right? It was just unbelievable. And so,
Well, it's 8 o'clock and we're the only ones here, so I'm hoping people are gonna start joining pretty soon. Cause we have a big agenda today.
It's a good thing we don't meet at 7:30 anymore.
Yeah,
Here comes Chapin.
Morning, everybody.
Hi, Chapin. How are you?
Hey, doing well.
Good.
hey Chapin, would you have a couple minutes for me possibly today or later this week? Design something? I'm happy to bring it to you.
What
Perfect.
service?
I'll be by tomorrow afternoon, Nick.
I'm happy to, if, let me know if it's easier, Paul, I can meet you somewhere close to your house, but if you're willing to come here, that's great too.
No, I'll be out and about on Friday, so I'll swing by.
Okay, great, thank you.
So the Parkway's not gonna open this year, is that true, Chapin?
But it's not 50 years away. It will open by June next year, and all is progressing well. So
It looks like they're paving, so I figure they're on the last legs.
yeah, I tell you, I tell CAX all the things that still need to be done, and the headline read, "Project nearly done, but city says it'll take another year." It's like, thanks, guys.
You need the publicity, Chapin.
Thanks, but no thanks.
Chapin, I heard we were running out of water, is water back again, or what?
Yeah, I'm checking on that as we're meeting this morning. Last night, the reservoir was filling back up, and the Colchester tanks are completely full. So I think we'll be taking down the conservation notice today.
Well, that's good.
Heard it was like the first one in like 12, 15 years that we've ever had to do that, so it's surprising.
Water main breaks that have certainly drained the reservoir and have forced us to have a conservation notice in the winter time. But this is the first kind of heat wave situation
Interesting.
in my tenure.
Well, need at least another person to join. I think 3 is quorum. I think Susan said she wasn't gonna be able to make it, as I
Yeah,
remember.
I thought she said she'd be here.
Oh. I can't keep track anymore.
Well, why don't we call the meeting to order and we'll get started and go through a couple of items here and hopefully she shows up. Call the meeting to order at 8:03. Are there any adjustments to the agenda?
Nope.
No, Nick?
From staff,
Any members of the public here that would like to comment?
none online and none in the boardroom.
Okay, Nick, we'll skip the approval of minutes and move right on. Let's do the director
Sure.
report. Let's get started with that.
Yeah, you'll see, obviously I provided a report in your board packet, this month. I'm gonna be pretty brief. There's a lot in the report, but we're gonna do a full financial breakdown for the end of the year next month. So I'll just keep my financial remarks at a high level, but just some department updates. As I brought up earlier, here comes Austin, so let me know, Paul, if you wanna take care of the minutes or have me continue. Should I just keep going, Paul, or do you want
Yeah,
to?
yeah, let's go ahead and get started with this, and hopefully someone else will come.
Okay. So as I mentioned before, the bank, here comes everyone. The bank is trying to make my life as difficult as possible, so they have asked me to have the borrowing resolution signed by a wet signature in blue by each board member. And so that means I have to meet with every person and have them sign it. So I apologize for that. And people have been really great coming by the office. Like I said, Chapin, if we could schedule a time where I could stop by, that would be great. Really, it's just you, Paul, and Tasha's coming by this week. So that will put us across the finish line. But that line of credit, obviously, we want to get that set up so that we don't risk any cash flow issues when the rural side eventually goes away. The commercial insurance renewal is finally done. It was a huge increase over last year. We're talking like 14%, and it got even worse because travelers, in addition to raising our premium, lowered what they were willing to cover. So they limited our coverage to a $10 million per incident, meaning if our buses caught on fire, all at once, we would only be covered up to $10 million. So that was a real big problem. We went out to the market for excess coverage, and I was able to get it. But obviously that increased our premiums over, what was a 14% increase this year to about 16%. So commercial insurance remains a very, very difficult and expensive thing to procure. I've been in contact with other public transit providers to discuss, some ideas that could lower prices, such as a captive or, approaching the market as a consolidated group. But that is something we are going to have to figure out, because this is the second year in a row where we've had double-digit increases, and I don't want there to be a third. Historically, we've seen about a 6% increase. But the insurance market, there's just so much demand for coverage, and there's just not enough coverage. And that's basically what's happening. And we're obviously not the most attractive risk profile for an insurer. We're driving lots of people around on big, heavy buses on the interstate and around town, and that is a risky business. So they're not super thrilled to cover us. But there are thankfully other parts of our coverage that are attractive, like workers' compensation and things like that. So the short end of it is we were able to get the coverage. It was very expensive. And we will try next year to, lower the costs, hopefully. The 26 operating budget adjustment still planned for, likely it's going to be October, which is typically what, when we do an adjustment. So we are working on that. The state grant award is done. We definitely saw a pretty large decrease on the rural side in terms of our funding, and we've got some real challenges there next year. I think when I provide the operating budget adjustment, you'll see. But I know that VTrans has told me that we will discuss during the mid-year about additional funding. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, what's presented on the budget when I do present the 26 operating budget adjustment isn't necessarily all the funding we're going to get for the full year. So it's just a starting point. And then I was in Washington last month for the GFOA conference. It was a great experience. There was actually a dedicated panel for public transit. I met a lot of really great people. I think the summary of it is everyone is kind of in the same spot. The COVID funds are running out, the costs are higher. And so I talked to a lot of people where service reductions were on the table. So I don't think we're the only ones in this predicament. I will say, really the goal of me being there this year was to make some contacts because we are going to need to do or procure a new software for accounting. Likely we'd like to maybe incorporate budgeting payroll in that as well. But really the plan is in the short term is to hire a consultant that will help us evaluate our business processes, kind of determine what is the best product in the market, and then help us put together a procurement to get that. And that could take a long time. And, it's a very serious, software project that is very important to the organization. So I want to make sure we do it right. So that's why we're going to go out to the market, try to get the best expertise we can get and make sure that, this is a successful project. So more on that in the future months. And then the last thing I'll point out is we do have a agenda item that we added to talk about ADA fairs. We talked about this at the retreat. We have a kind of a credit-based model that SSTA uses right now, where folks are allowed to ride without paying, and then they kind of pay afterwards. It's become a real problem because they're having to chase people for money, and we've reached out to some peer ADA transport agencies, and they don't do it that way. They really request that people pay before they get the service. That way, they're not having to chase people around, and so. The board agreed to that model as long as we, set up a credit card option and, basically wiped out all of the outstanding fares for folks. Talking to SSTA, that's about $30,000, and they really don't want to do that. They don't think it's fair. They don't think it's equitable, and they also, who's going to pay for it, right? So either they're going to have to absorb it, or we're going to have to absorb it, which means we're going to absorb it. So, $30,000 is a large enough, amount of money where we wanted to reopen that conversation to the finance committee to maybe approach the board with changing their recommendation. Just jumping on to financials real quick. I won't spend a ton of time because we are going to go through, all of this next month in greater detail, but for the combined authority, we had a small operating surplus of $5,000. Again, you have complete May financials in my report, as well as preliminary June year-end expenses. And we had a negative change in net assets of about $400,000. How that breaks out between divisions: on the urban side, we've got a small deficit of about $44,000. Just to give you some context, that's about 0.2% of our total budget. So we're pretty happy with that. That's pretty close. And to be honest with you, the unless we run out of funding, the urban side should be close to zero. But that's roughly what we've seen through the years is plus or minus 50,000 on the urban side. On the rural side, we've got a roughly $49,000 surplus. Actually, I was surprised. I thought we were going to lose a lot more money in May than we did, because we have extinguished all of our 5311 federal funds. So at this point, we're really using leftover state funds and local funds to support operating costs for our 5311 service. We only lost about $25,000 in May on the rural side, but really it was driven by, we had a fifth week in May, so we got 5 Medicaid payments. So June is not going to be the same, because we're gonna have a regular Medicaid payment schedule of 4 during the month. So I project we're probably going to lose. Let's see, what did I write? If I think about $80,000 to $100,000 in June. So for the year end on the rural side, I think we're probably going to end the year between $30,000 and $50,000 in the red. So that's something we, obviously we can absorb. We have a decent fund balance on the rural side, but I did want to make you aware that I do believe we're going to end the year, with a small operating deficit. Looking at total revenues, just how the budget performed in May. We were at 87% of total revenues on the urban side, 90% for rural. Just to give you what are we targeting? So we kind of assume we're going to spend equally over the year. So we'd hope the budget would be at 92%. Really, we want federal, state, and local revenues to be under budget and operating revenues to be over. So that's kind of what happened in this case. So we were a little bit underneath in terms of federal, state, and local spending on the urban side, higher on the operating revenues, really driven by higher investment income primarily. But also, expenses have been, pretty materially lower than we expected on the urban side. And that's really been driven by maintenance and also, additional capital funding that V-Trans provided to us this fiscal year. So just to give you a sense, V-Trans provided $80,000 of capital funding for us this fiscal year. That's money to buy spare parts, engines and transmissions, and facility maintenance. And really, where I kind of made a mistake in my budget for this year is I didn't account enough for that funding. And so that, because we got all that capital funding, it really absorbed those costs and that way they didn't have to hit the operating budget. And so that's why if you look at the financials, you know, our expenses even in June for our maintenance division is pretty below the benchmark of, you know, 100% for the year. Again, we'll talk more about this, but that has really driven our utilization of our federal grants and also just, you know, being under benchmark in regards to total expenses on the urban side. So, you know, we appreciate that funding. Obviously that helped us out a lot this year. That's going to help us out a lot in future budget years. However, you know, as it stands right now, you know, that 480,000 we got this year is going to drop down to 75,000 next year. So that's going to be a big drop in capital funding. And so I guess what I'm trying to say is it may not be repeated. It likely will not be repeatable what we experienced this year, just because we're not projected to get as much capital funding next year. On the rural side, you know, we were largely on target with the benchmark of, you know, about 92%. We did have some underspending as well in federal, state, and local, really just in our mobility management grant. On, you know, looking at total expenses, I think we were, you know, really right at 97%. If you look at the June expenses for both urban and rural. So, you know, within 3 percentage points, you know, I'll take it. I mean, that's, you know, I'm pretty happy if I'm within that for the full budget. However, you know, I will say on the urban side, it's a little misleading because of the pass-through funds that we get. So, you know, if you take those funds out, you know, I wasn't as close. We were at about 93% of total expenses for the year. So, you know, those pass-through funds can kind of manipulate the budget a little bit. And just so you know what I'm talking about, we get funds that aren't really for us that we pass through to other organizations like CCRPC. So they show up as revenue and expenses in our budget, but they're not really funds that the organization uses. We just kind of act as an intermediary. So it can tend to throw off the budget sometimes. So I like to present, you know, what the actual results are net of those. You know, please read the report for, you know, any individual variances that we saw through the year. You know, we explain, you know, any of them that were really over, like, I think it was 10%, right, Rich? I think is what we wrote about.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the, you know, where we chose, if individual line items weren't outside that, we didn't really talk about it, but happy to answer any questions. And like I said, we'll do a, you know, an in-depth rundown once we have June financials for the year. But, you know, just in the end, I think rural side, good. We are going to show likely a loss for the full fiscal year. Urban side, we're definitely going to end the year better than we had hoped, which is going to be helpful for future years. So that's all I
Questions
have.
for Nick? Any questions for Nick? Nick, where are we with the Medicaid funding?
So Medicaid is a little under what we were, you know, under benchmark. I think it's at 89% for the year as of May. You know, we'd like to be at 92, so we're a little bit lower than the benchmark, but just you have to also factor in, because of the Medicaid funding structure, there is always going to be a little bit of volatility between, you know, either if we're paying another agency back because we have more profits than we should, or we're getting more revenue because we're losing money. So this year, in the beginning of the fiscal year, we actually paid some folks back, meaning our PMPW was reduced. So I'm not surprised that we're a little under target for the year. But likely that will be a budget pressure next year, though, because it looks like I might have to adjust my Medicaid revenue a little bit lower than I had it, you know, to start out. So.
Thanks, Nick. Other questions? Well, let's jump back and approve the minutes from June. A motion would be ordered to approve those as presented.
So moved.
Is there a second? Austin, you still here?
So,
Did we lose quorum?
Alone is here.
Austin shows he's on.
Yeah, we've got two other folks that are on. I don't know if I can pin them.
I'm not sure that I'm on this committee. Alana speaking here.
Sorry,
Okay.
I was trying to juggle kid stuff this morning too. I'm here.
No problem.
We need a second, Austin, to approve the minutes.
Yep, a second. Sorry about that.
Okay, thanks.
Okay.
Any more discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
I
Any opposed? Abstentions? The minutes are approved. Now let's move on to the capital budget adjustment. Is that Matt?
That is, let me share my screen. And I'll start with apologies for sending this out late in the evening yesterday. That doesn't give the group much opportunity to review beforehand, but I will walk through this in detail. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
A lot of harsh colors on this, so apologies for that, but I will start at the top.
Hey, Matt, can you
Yep.
zoom in a little bit?
Sure. How's that?
Yeah, that's better.
So I can get the original budget on up here too. So at the top, we previously had in the adopted budget 7 40-foot electric buses for FY26. That was with the assumption that the 6 35-foot from FY25 were going to be ordered and delivered in 25. So that's no longer the case. So those 6 35-footers are now slated for FY26. So that reduces this line item from $9,548,000 down to $7,523,994. And before I move in line by line, a lot of these line items that are being removed from the budget are part of the scope of projects from our 5339 competitive application with the FDA. There's no award announcement on there, so we're removing those projects from here, but those could be added at a later date, assuming GMT gets a successful award. So one of those is the 3 heavy-duty diesel buses. So that line B is being removed. Line C, this has been modified to reflect the award from V-Trans for replacement SSTA vehicles. That's $714,000 for 4 cutaways and 2 unmodified vans. Previously, we had 10 cutaways with that line item being $1.5 million. So that has been reduced. The Essex cutaway has been removed. That is part of the 5339 application that I mentioned earlier. Facility PM. So like Nick said, as it currently stands, we have much less capital maintenance line funding in this year. So facility PM, we are carrying over some unspent facility improvement and PM funds. That's going to be funding. That's going to be funding in full or partially a couple of line items in this budget, which I'll get into later. So right now I have 24,480 earmarked for facility PM. Local from that is coming from the fund because that's carry forward funds from FY25. Spare parts and miscellaneous support equipment. We have 75,000 in the initial state grant award. We are hoping to be able to talk to V-Trans at the midpoint of the year about capital funding available and what can be provided. Just to give you a sense of the decrease here, this line item in the adopted capital budget was $315,922. This line item up here was 200,000, but that also included a number of projects in our 5339 application. So we were not anticipating $200,000 of just strictly facility PM. So both of those line items are pretty significantly under what our request was. Electric bus diagnostic equipment. This line item, actually, I didn't indicate this one is changing, but it did. In the board approved budget, we had 71,734. I increased this line to 96,734, and the reasoning for that is because down below we had a scissor lift for facility maintenance. So the plan is that we're actually going to buy that scissor lift utilizing the Lono special tools and equipment line item, because the primary purpose of that scissor lift, having that on site, is to service the overhead dispensers that will be installed in the bus garage. So we did talk to V-Trans about that earlier in the year. They agreed that that would be a eligible cost for that grant. So I merged that up here rather than having it in two separate lines. Line K, this is unchanged. K and L are unchanged. 75,000 for workforce development, 50,000 for passenger amenities. We removed the fuel tank replacement as that's part of the 5339 slate of projects. Line N, this was previously installing a network building climate control system. And I've changed this because we are including a line item for ITS improvements, which would include automatic voice enunciators, automatic passenger counters, and then if funding allows, improve DTC passenger information and ADA improvements there, like a more enhanced communication system on the platform. So this would be utilizing the balance of the livability grant. We are still working with FTA on an amendment to that grant. Something I did notice that I overlooked before, I have the federal being shown as awarded from V-Trans. That's going to be moved over here into the federal funds awarded by FTA, since that isn't our direct federal. Moving along, we have an agreement with V-Trans that $25,000 will be added to our grant agreement in the first amendment for server replacement. And I put IT equipment in here in case the server replacement comes in under $25,000. So previously we had this as $35,000 covering replacement office and technology equipment. The server replacement is really the prioritization there. So that's the reasoning for the name change. Line P, this is for replacement shop truck. This was previously 65,000. We are utilizing 36,500 from FY25 that was planned for a non-revenue hybrid driver relief vehicle, which would become which was then changed to be a new facility maintenance truck. But after talking with V-Trans, capital is going to be limited this year. So we're going to prioritize the shop truck, since that's the more immediate need, and put those 36,500 towards that. This was previously 65,000. Looking at BGS state contract, we would be looking at a Ford F-350. Those can actually be obtained for under 50,000. I put 50,000 in case there are some optional equipment that we would specify the vehicle with. So 36,500 with carry forward funds. We would be seeking an additional 15,500 or 13,500 to get to the 50,000. And I believe I actually had planned on that coming from that same facility improvement line item. So this local match figure may change. That may go over to the from being pulled from the fund. Lines Q and R, I already explained their removal. So we'll skip past those. Line S, this was previously $100,000 for the accounting system replacement, accounting system software replacement. That's being reduced down to 25,000 to hire a consultant to help us with procuring that, as Nick stated earlier. And that 100,000 they originally awarded, 75,000 of that was pushed up here to spare parts. Line T, third-party inspection and post-delivery Buy America audit for heavy-duty bus orders. This one is actually not in our state grant award, but we were copied on the POP that V-Trans has submitted as part of its federal grant applications, and we did see that line item in there, so I felt comfortable leaving it in, but we will discuss with V-Trans before we make any actual procurements against that line item. And moving along, these highlighted in green are new line items. The first that's not carry forward is facility improvements in the master plan study for 31 Queen City Park Road facility, adding 40,000 there, program from our direct federal. And then carry forward, we have the electric bus charging infrastructure from FY25, similar to the bus order. There were delays during FY25 that's pushing all of these into 26. And I think I may have overlooked. So we had a electric bus charging infrastructure project in this budget before for 1.7 million. That's being removed, and the carry forward from FY25 is being added. As well as that, we have upgrading the fire suppression system at 101. The sprinkler project is completed. There will be some final billing hitting FY26, but this is the carry forward of the full grant award. So we had the full grant award programmed in 25, so we're just going to continue carrying this forward since the local match is coming from the fund until that gets fully spent down. We do have some project activities that will go against that in 26. Moving along, design consulting assistance for the 5339 grant application. Because that application was submitted in July, we had a significant number of project expenses hitting that period. So this is 34,338. A lot of this is coming from that facility improvement capital from 25 that has a remaining balance at the end of the year. Line Y, this is replacement maintenance software purchase for $19,000. So this is the replacement software that will be replacing Dossier. And this is actually coming from our direct federal. We have a line item that was originally intended for grants management software, but the way that our federal grant is written, it actually covers things like fleet maintenance software, enterprise asset management. So we've identified that a standalone grants management software is probably not necessary for the organization. So we're going to focus those funds on the fleet maintenance software. And then lastly, on the urban side, we have replacement in office and technology support equipment. This is carry forward from FY25. The bulk of this is for the badge printer replacement, but we did evaluate the billing and our tracking, and it appears that we'll have this balance of $9,584.40. $6,500 is the price of the badge printer, so it's about $3,000 in addition to that. That can be used to supplement the $25,000 for the server replacement if needed, or it can cover computer replacements and other items. Before I move on to rural, I did just want to highlight there are some assumptions in here about state match that may not match reality. We have not really had an opportunity to discuss this at length with V-Trans. So what I would propose is that we pass the budget as stands, and as we have those negotiations with V-Trans, if there is an adjustment that's needed in the future, we'll propose another adjustment to correct those figures. Usually this first adjustment at the beginning of the year is based on a lot of projections before our state grant agreements really get finalized with V-Trans. Any questions about urban before I move on to rural?
Matt, that diesel tank, is that an underground tank?
No, that's an above ground tank.
Okay, thanks.
No questions, Matt, and I will need to leave in 9 minutes, so apologies in advance.
I will speed through rural so we can get the recommendation in line then. All right, rural, similarly to the 5339 application stuff that I mentioned on the urban side, these buses at the top were included in VTrans statewide application for vehicles. Since that's still pending, these are being removed from the budget and can be added back in at a later date. So starting at the top, spare parts, miscellaneous support equipment, that matches. We received 150,000 from VTrans covering facility PM. We're gonna work with them to create a new line item in the amendment for spare parts, covering our request amount of 34,150. Like I said, facility PM, that leaves 115,850 in there. We're gonna work on our prioritization, see if that's the best allocation of the limited capital funds that are occurring this year. But for now, that reflects the award, and that's where we're gonna have those funds programmed. I'll skip past AF and AG since those are unchanged from the budget. Replacement office equipment, we've been told 6,000 is what will be provided in the First Amendment. So that's a decrease from the 10,000 in the board adopted budget, but we believe 6,000 will be sufficient to meet the needs. And then we have a number of carry forward. Well, actually, no. Before that, we have 2 replacement ADA conversion minivans for 175,936. That was not in the board approved capital budget. And we have this FY18 Lono grant for 532,985. We've tried different approaches, but at the end, it's the only path forward is for GMT to purchase the buses, Ford Transit electric vans, and either get them into their fleet or we can find a transfer partner within the state of Vermont. But those are being programmed. That is a much older grant, so we are going to spend that down in FY26. And then we have our carry forward carbon reduction fund projects from FY25, $800,000, and for the vehicles, 124,000 for the infrastructure. Those can be shifted between each other as needed. And the final plan, this was left as either LPG or EV. We are going to be doing EV with the potential transfer to TVT. They have expressed that they're not interested in a small number of LPG buses. Any questions on rural?
Questions for Matt? What do you need from the committee, Matt?
We are looking for an endorsement from the committee to the Board of Commissioners to approve the proposed capital budget.
A motion.
Make that motion.
Make that recommendation.
Second.
Yeah, I'll make that.
Thank you, Chapin. Austin? Second, Austin?
No, I was the, sure, I'll second. I made that motion before.
Okay, we have Chapin on the motion, Austin on the second. Thanks. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Okay, move on to the ADA fair discussion.
Hey, so before you jump off, Chapin, is there a time today that's best for me to stop over?
Yeah, why don't we can text and coordinate. I'll figure out time.
Which do you want me, I don't have your number, Chapin.
Lunchtime works great. 802-316-0006.
Okay, thanks. I'll be in touch.
And now the whole world has that number, Chapin.
I will leave those out of the minutes. This was something Chapin or Clayton wanted me to put on the finance committee for, the finance, to get feedback, from the finance committee on. Again, I kind of spoke about this in my remarks on my finance report, but, the ADA fair, we are moving away from this credit-based model. Again, it's just been very challenging. It's a lot of work from my staff too, because SSTA doesn't really send out the letters to folks when they owe money. It's my staff that has to do this. And so we would like to get away from having to do that. And if people would just pay, before they board, that would save it would save money on postage, it would save money on time. So we're very in favor of this, as well as SSTA. Again, the board, we brought this to during the retreat, and they were supportive of it, assuming, we had a credit card option available on the vehicles, which we will have shortly. We've actually helped SSTA procure a vendor for that. And we're gonna pay for it, but it's, money well spent. To be honest with you, I think the money we'll save on not having to manage this will offset the cost for the technology. The big thing that we're bringing to you is just the fact, the board did say, we'd like to wipe out all outstanding fares. I can't remember what the as of date was, but that's $30,000. And, I think that's enough money where, we need to possibly reconsider that. Because we're gonna absorb that. SSTA is gonna ask us to cut them a check for that balance if we do this. So I just wanted to get some feedback. And, whatever you folks decide, if you say, we want to leave it as is, then we'll move forward with that. But it is a program that we raise 50 cents on the dollar to support, or 55 actually now. So it's already a program that has challenging economics. And so my recommendation would be that, we keep the fares, we keep trying to collect them. It doesn't mean we're going to stop people from riding if they don't pay it. It just means we're going to try to collect the fares and not wipe them clean. So, so that's really it.
Nick, who came up with the system?
Paul, I have no idea. I wasn't here, when it, was developed, but, in terms of how much the fare is, that's set by the federal government. So you can only charge 2 times the fixed route fare. So it's $4, each way, for the service.
Well, who decided to let people ride and pay later?
I don't know. I think that was just the way we started the system. I think we just wanted to make it easy for folks, and especially, a lot of the folks that do ride this service are elderly or, disabled. And so I think that was, and plus there was no credit card option either. So, not everyone has cash on them, and we didn't want to limit service. So, we started this model, but, it has been very challenging over the years. And I think now even more so, SSTA just said they would basically, if we didn't make this change, they would have to hire more staff to manage this, because they just constantly are getting calls about their accounts or, how do they pay and, things of that nature. I think adding the credit card option will be very helpful to folks.
Is there a compromise to be had here?
I mean, I don't know if there's really a compromise. I think it's either, do we want to, not approach the board to change, what they approved, and eat the $30,000 in fares, or do we want to approach the board and say, hey, this is a material amount of money. We would like to not move forward with this and have you reconsider it.
Comment, Chapin?
Yes, given our financial condition and given the fact that people received services, I think it's fair for us to continue to pursue these outstanding funds. And I would propose to move that we recommend the board amend the organization's position to continue to pursue past payments for unpaid ADA services from riders.
Is
I'll
there a
second that.
Thank you. Further discussion? All those in
Yeah,
favor? I'm
I-
sorry, go ahead.
oh yeah, no, I agree with Chapin's comments. I mean, I think I think the spirit of, and I'm trying to like go through my internal like minutes myself of the board retreat, but I think the spirit of that was that we wouldn't prevent anyone from riding due to past payments, and we would just, yeah, so I don't think we should be preventing anyone from riding due to debts, but they should be paying, on their service they're using, and then I think, keeping collections available to us, I think that's the best case scenario. So
So that's correct, Austin. We will let people ride, even if they have a balance, we'll just try to collect that balance.
yeah,
I will say, when we do implement the new system, once we have the credit card option available, people will have to pay before they ride. I mean, that's the whole
yes,
point.
yes,
But if they have a previous balance, we won't stop them. Well, as long as they pay for that next ride, they'll be allowed to get on the
Yeah.
vehicle. Yeah.
exactly. All right.
Chapin?
Paul, just to make it explicit, I appreciate this dialogue, and I think it's important that our committee express that nuance. So here's my proposed revised motion, if it's friendly to the seconder. I move that we recommend to the board that it amend the organization's position to continue to pursue past payments for unpaid ADA services from riders, with the understanding that past outstanding payments will not inhibit future ridership.
Love it. I'll second the amended motion.
We have a motion that's been made, amended, and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
All right.
Any opposed? We've got it. You're a minute late, Chapin.
All right, thanks all.
Thanks for hanging in.
Thank you. Okay.
Future agenda items, Nick?
Yeah,
You
so
looking
I'm
for-
sorry.
You
I
looking for
didn't,
help from us?
yeah, I would love some help from you folks, on, what's important to you. Sometimes I feel, like a broken record a little bit, I kind of just give you the same things, and, you get the regular finance report, the financials, and the quarterly, in-depth presentations, and, the budget, and, that's the typical plate of offerings that you folks get. One thought I did have is, in the past, I think there was a request to have an update on the CTO liability kind of once a year. What is that made up of? How has that grown over the years? So I was thinking of adding that to a future agenda, to go over, because, CTO is a really huge cost to this organization. So I think it's important that you folks know, the impacts of that, and it's our largest liability on our balance sheet, is just vacation time. So I will continue to report on that. Obviously we'll have the line of credit. Eventually, my hope is to never have to use that, but I'll add that once, if we ever borrow from it, I'll be reporting on that. I kind of tend to, usually in the quarterlies, I give you kind of overview of the investment portfolio and how that's performing. So that's kind of covered there, but we could do a separate topic on that. However, I don't know if it would take that much time. It's a pretty bland portfolio of just treasury bills. But anything else that, you folks would like from my group, would be helpful, just so I can make this, committee as useful, for you folks as possible.
And one thought, Nick, is taking a look at some expenditures, like we're spending a fair amount of money on the building next door, planning. Can we get a detail on what's the status of that building, and what are we planning to use that building for? I'm not sure it's clear that everybody understands that. And I think another item would be looking at, you see the air handling systems on the capital budget year after year, and we don't do much with them. So if we get a detail on how old those are, what kind of maintenance that is required, and so looking at kind of the long-term liabilities we have on items like that. The age of the fleet's another one we don't hear much about.
Okay.
And
These are all things in on Matt's side, so I would defer to him. But we could maybe have a standing quarterly capital projects agenda item, I think that might be helpful. So I'll work with Matt and his group on, determining how do we bring those items, before you, Paul.
Any other suggestions, Austin, you think of?
It's not right to me, and I mean, kind of in that vein, I think you're thinking preventative maintenance, something, things that would be, I'm sorry, I'm just not as eloquent today, haven't had enough coffee, but things that would be cheaper if we were able to make one-time investments. I know that there's, like we've talked about in the past, I'm trying to think of examples for like that, but I know the doors and the door systems we had, it'd be cheaper. We just had the money. Identifying those types of things, would be helpful, and having conversations about those.
Gotcha. One item that I am looking to do in the short term is I'd like to have our broker that helps us procure commercial insurance come in. Kind of talk to you about, what is our insurance portfolio? What are some risk management strategies? What policies do we have and why? What do they cover? Talk about the insurance industry, the dynamics that are occurring right now and anything we can do. Because there are things we can do, in terms of talking about cost savings, on the workers' comp side, making this place a safer place to work. And just talk about our claims history as well. We've actually had a really good claims history over the past, not that it's really helped us a whole lot, but that's one topic that I've thought of bringing, this year to you folks.
Along those same lines, with what's going on with the Allegiant Insurance at some point during the year, it might be nice to see what's going on with, I guess there's only Blue Cross and MVP. I think that's their only choices in the state. I'm not sure if there's anything else out there, but see what's available that's comparable to Allegiant.
Yeah, and then I'd add just one more thing is just ongoing conversations like we had at leadership this week about just alternative funding. I'd like to do more of that in this space. I think, it's helpful to have the conversation in leadership, but I just think it needs to happen in more places.
Yeah, thanks, Austin. Dan, you had a comment or question?
Yeah, Paul, just 3 thoughts also for items, maybe for this committee. I think you said it's healthcare, right? Especially with what was presented at leadership. I think more updates on the Medicaid program might be helpful, especially as the Washington County transition happens and like what that's going to look like, if there's any impacts at all on GMT. And then just that Washington County, I don't think it's the right time this month, and maybe it's once a quarter, get an update, or maybe Nick, you're already planning on some type of update on Washington County and how they impact the budget and what this committee might need to authorize in the future. So,
Thanks, Dan.
thanks, Paul.
Any other
Yeah,
comments?
that will be something that I'll plan to bring in the future, is just the financial impact of rural going away. That's something I am working on right now. So.
Okay, any other business to come before the committee? You're thinking, Nick? You look like you were thinking.
Oh, sorry. No, I apologize. I didn't mean to cut off Alona. I thought she might have had her hand up, so I didn't want to.
Okay. If there's no other business, then a motion would be in order to adjourn. Well, I guess we can't adjourn. We only have,
Yeah, let's say we don't have a quorum.
we can't adjourn. We're gonna have to stay in session indefinitely. All right, let's just sign off. Thank you all.
Thank
Have a good
you.
day, everyone.
Yeah, take care.
Thank you.